But I want to talk about PAD. PAD is Planning, Architecture, and Design, and we put this the first panel, we put this together from a group that used to exist called Cora a long, long time ago, about 2009. They kind of stopped the meetings, and I revived the group about 2.5 years ago is when we started those meetings again, and I wanted to just expand this to include all of the industry, commercial and residential, and be able to provide a spark of inspiration for every one of you with topics that are of interest and speakers that are, will spark your creativity. Every other month we put this together, so we're now, I think for the 5th time in a row, sold out within a very, very short period of time. We kept our meetings at 15 people because what I would like to have is all of us still be able to interact with the topics and with the speakers and feel free to speak and not be worried about too many people being around. So with that, I would like to thank our sponsor, Crossville, for a beautiful location and for lunch as well. Thank you very much. So Crossville will also be available, as you saw. This is a beautiful showroom. They will be available for show tours afterwards. This is Jillian right there, and Gracie, and Carlos is somewhere as well.
Right. Carlos is over here.
Over there. So just approach them after the meeting is over if you want to see more of the showroom. It's gorgeous. You won't be disappointed. And thank you also for Jess for orchestrating and putting us together. He's the master of networking. So Jess architecture. And then let's get into what we're here for today. Okay, so the topic today is public art and how you would go about incorporating that into your projects possibly. And I have an amazing panel of people that I also call my friends and I'm really excited about. So it's Matt Moore, Matt Hooker, and Sharon Dowell. So let's start with Sharon. So Sharon, I'm going to ask you because I know I'm going to forget something. So Sharon is an artist. She does murals here in Charlotte. She's also does art on canvas, and she's very well known here in the Charlotte area. She has served in various roles with local galleries. She's an adjunct professor and a Rogue Galleries coordinator at UNC Charlotte and a director of the Center of the Earth Gallery. And she also just signed up a really cool project in Boulder, Colorado that's going to be starting in 2019, right? And you're doing a couple of projects for CATS Transportation as well?
I did, yes.
You did? Okay, all right. And you're doing some large-scale murals for UNC Charlotte as well?
I did, yeah.
Yes, so this is Sharon.
Thank you, that was great.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. And then we have the Mets. And I think everybody knows the Mets. If you haven't heard of them, you've seen their art for sure. They're both self-taught artists. They've done numerous murals here in Charlotte, very, very large scale, also smaller scale. But there is not one of you guys, I promise you, that haven't seen your art. So welcome. And I was very happy to work with them as well on the project. So, very early on, still working. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with some questions. And I want this to be interactive. So if things come up during the discussion, please feel free to jump in and ask a question as well. I have a few questions prepared, and we also can do questions and answers at the end. So let's just get started, okay? So since I'm not them, I figured you can introduce yourselves as well a little bit, and maybe talk about your favorite project, your own favorite project in Charlotte, and why it's your favorite project, okay? Cool. Let's start with Matt. Okay.
I mean,
You're packaging on it.
Yeah, but
But you may have a different favorite project than you do.
Same. So we're a rare duo in the art world. You don't find, a lot of people ask us, like, or they remark, like, how do you two creatives make it work? And I don't know, we lucked out, I guess. We've painted our entire lives. We've known each other for about 10 years and didn't know that the other one was an artist for the longest time. And when we found out, it was another few years went by. He had painted live before, so when I was hired to paint live a few years later, I hit him up and I was like, you want to do this together? So sure. And then we got a studio, and then we started joining forces, and now it is what it is.
We found out it's a lot more fun to paint when you have a team.
Oh, yeah.
Painting by yourself can get lonely.
And what is your favorite project in Charlotte?
We just completed one in Plaza Midwood of a big Greek or Roman statue.
Yes.
Big 4-story one at Pecan and
Have
Central.
you all seen that one?
The
Gorgeous.
scale alone of that is one of the reasons it's
Yeah.
my favorite. But also the client gave us free reign to kind of do whatever we wanted,
Oh, really?
which is a rarity.
So how did you come up with that?
We've been asked that question probably
10,000 times?
Well,
Wish I had a more clear-cut answer.
We tried to get that wall, we'd been trying to get access to that wall for like 2 years, and we circled around, and finally it was like, all right, it's go time. And then when we had the wall secured, we still didn't know what we wanted to do. We never know what we want to do until the paint is dry, you know. And we started thinking about it. We kicked around a ton of things, and I've always, anytime we've done interviews or stuff like this in the past, I've always talked about how there's a wave coming, you know, the development that's happening, the growth that's happening, this and that, and you can either get swept away or you can put a board underneath you and take a little ride. And that's you know, these water metaphors were always in my head.
Well, water metaphors, and also the first conversation we had about the other one. Again, we've known each other for a really long time, and I think it was 5 years after knowing each other that we didn't realize the other one painted. And that conversation was had at Gallery 22, right there on the corner.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And then not long after, maybe 8 months later, we had a conversation about getting a studio together. So our partnership essentially, you know, started right there on that corner. So
Yeah.
we also kind of wanted to do a piece that represented us in a way. And,
We don't see ourselves
Greek
as
gods.
water
we're
gods.
Greek
or
gods.
I did model for it. No, it's glitched. It's got the central figure in the middle, and then half of one over here, half of one over here. One is red, or the right is red, the left is blue. A little political stuff there, and then in the middle, it forms this monument, this symbol of permanence, this symbol of strength and whatever else, the maker of the waves. And it's purple. It's all purple tones, so it's like whatever the
The
right.
idea that we're stronger together.
Yeah, whatever the right believes, whatever the blue believes, or the left believes, like let's get together and make purple, which is the royal color, the Queen City, blah blah blah. So nothing's arbitrary on it, you know. It's thought out, but we don't get super deep. You know? That's about as deep as we go.
That was pretty deep. That was pretty deep, yeah. I
It's
remember too.
King of the ocean. It's gotta be deep. Puns
Sharon.
everywhere.
I really wanted to know what that was about. Thank you.
Could have just texted me.
I'm sorry, you didn't. Well, I'm so excited to be up here with the Mats. It's been really great to see you guys kind of like just blossom and
Likewise.
explode.
Yeah.
Likewise. Al, like
You're
you're
sharing
doing your
that.
thing.
Anyway, so, but I come from more of like a administrative background. I worked in galleries for quite a while and really loved that and the whole organizing and selling art and then the academic side of it too at UNCC, and it was great. And about 4 years ago I realized, ooh, I've got enough public art projects lined up. I'll be okay for 2 years. What am I doing? I mean, even though I really loved it, I was like, all right, this is the time. So I jumped out and started making murals and public art. And I say that separately because sometimes I'm working as more of a designer, like with the 25th Street station for CATS Transit. I was working with subcontractors. I didn't paint at all, even though that's my heart and soul. I was working with like doll tile to make mosaic tile murals, and a guy that cut my laser cut cladding columns, and I was designing digitally for the windscreens where the canopies are where you sit. So it was a huge learning curve for me with both the medium, but also, you know, getting to work with architects and city planners and an art panel, and then and it was like an 8-year project. Oh my God, I definitely have more gray hairs now than that. But because, you know, it was such a long project, it was really interesting, and things were constantly changing. Like, oh, actually, this was going to be a foot shorter. oh, okay, so I gotta change my, go back to the drawing board and change things as you go. So I learned how to be a little bit more flexible too. I feel like in the public art realm, that's really important to be able to kind of, I try to design ahead of time thinking, this could change some way, and how can I do this where it's still gonna be really high impact within these parameters that I'm given. And I really like that challenge. You guys probably like that too with murals, like.
You like that? I don't go back and forth.
I mean, the back and forth maybe isn't as much fun, but
We do
It's
try to
relative to
plan.
the client.
yeah, as far as like that challenge of, I have this area and this is the content that maybe I've been given, but how do I, have your style come out through it and do something really exciting.
What's your favorite piece of yours right now?
My favorite piece. It would probably be the murals underneath 277 and 11th Street. That was another CATS Transit project. If you ride the light rail, it's kind of near Alpha Mill. It's kind of in no man's land still, but you'll see it as you go into NODA. And that was super fun and exciting, and they're just enormous. And had to work with a team on that. And it's just, I don't know, it's just exciting to drive by and go, oh, I did that.
Well, there's nothing else in the city that's like that anywhere, right?
I don't think so. And it was just a really neat opportunity to work with these columns, and there's paint on different sides, and I tried to make it interesting from different views, whether you're, walking. I like to talk in my head. Whether you're walking or riding the light rail or driving past it. So.
Have you guys seen it?
Well, go see it now.
Totally go see it.
Okay.
Okay, let's get right into the meat. Okay, so for anyone who would like to incorporate public art in their projects or developments, how would you go about doing that? And what is the proper process? What are the responsibilities? Like who does what?
Call
I know
one
that's
of
a
us.
big question.
Call one of us, and you'll get it. Like, if anybody out there wants anything, hit us up.
So we, I mean, like, for example,
We've been
we do-
fortunate to not have to go through much, bureaucratic red tape.
Any
Nothing
permitting
to the city.
involved? Is there any
No
licensing
permitting.
No, no,
involved?
I can speak to all that stuff.
There you
That's
go.
true.
All right.
Well, I was gonna mention maybe some artists, but maybe if you want to know more about what's in your own backyard, a good way I've seen people do is they'll reach out to the Arts and Science Council or McCall Center. Maybe if it's a huge project and you want to maybe vet a few different artists, they can help you connect you with artists or put a call out if that's the route you want to go. So that's just an option. But then, also just being familiar with artists in your own backyard, like go to art openings or walk around and see what murals are out there. I mean, you probably already know about the mats and people like that. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question. So what about just doing small scale projects? Landscape architect, and thinking of a lot of times there's fencing or paneling or screening. I've got 2 projects that I'm working on now, and it's finding a way to incorporate art into it. But is that something where after the project is finished, I just say, hey, call these guys this right here where we're talking about this panel, or do you guys have minimums, or
No.
you know what I mean?
Don't paint, don't eat, so.
Don't
Don't paint, don't eat. No, but with stuff like that where it's, we're gonna be handling a large project next year. It's for the fall next year where the developer is planning everything. I mean, there's not even elevations yet. He's still on a computer, with the architecture firm. But he's planning everything around art being showcased.
Yeah.
Really cool. But for stuff like that where, the city says we need a screen for the dumpster, or we have a retaining wall here, and it's they're building things, but they're not building things with art in mind, but you still want to do art, which thank you for that if you do. That stuff is just, we come in and we see what we can squeeze in there,
Oh, I'm thinking residential.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like there's a few places that we've been asked to do little things like I said, like the dumpster screens or the little retaining walls or stuff like that. Or are you talking about like interior?
No. But for example, big ugly ass side of the garage, and
Oh, yeah,
that's turning
yeah.
into something cool, and we're building this space. But you have to. It's walls, floors, roof, ceiling. I need to be able to incorporate art into it as well, so that it's not necessarily just something that's hung on the wall afterwards or affixed to,
Oh,
but
yeah, yeah.
something that's part of
Mhm.
that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, that's
I think it's great if you can try to, if you're working with a client, to try to slide that in the beginning. Maybe if you have designs. I was talking with an architect one time about that, and she started to just put art on the wall, art on the wall in her designs that she was showing to her clients in the very beginning, because often that doesn't happen. And then at the end of the project, they're like, oh wait, we need some art in here, and then, you know, all of your budget's been allocated, and it's really hard. And it's better if you incorporate it in the beginning. So that would be one tip that I would give to people. I feel like it's like the last box on the checklist, even after furniture.
So have you dealt with the city as well, or only primarily with owners, like for you?
typically we thankfully have skirted all red tape. You know, we put paint on stuff, including our bodies. You know, like that's it. It's simple. We don't like to deal with.
There.
We don't bid on things mainly because
Yeah.
We just like to paint.
we just like to paint.
And you've dealt with government.
She's the
before,
bureaucrat.
right?
She loves it.
So
Loves it.
when you're being hired,
Good at it. You're boss. Like you.
when you're being hired for a public space, such as, you know, under bridges or something like that,
So I-
what is the process there? Like,
Well, a lot of them I'll get from like calls to artists, so I'm like applying for national calls like all the time. And I just got one in Boulder, Colorado, that'll start next year. And I'm gonna be fabricating sculpture again. I'm not gonna be, well, I'll be painting on the sculpture, but it's all gonna be freestanding. So I'm really interested in projects like that. I think with the light rail, that experience was really cool. And it was challenging, all the red tape and the changes and whatnot, and sometimes you have to scale back some things, but I really enjoy that. But then I also enjoy the other, kind of like what you guys do, where I just come in and paint something fun.
So, you know, not unlike a food desert, you know, there are areas in our urban environments that are devoid of richness.
So
And so new developers come in, and typically those areas are more prevalent or visual. So they're visible to the masses. But there are those areas that are just calling for, needing for, wanting for the enrichment of art. And so how do you see the call for you to engage those spaces? Or do you personally have ideals about popping art in places that are not, I don't know, put out there as, you know, a marketing piece? In other words, where do you lay your paint sometimes that's not necessarily paid for?
I don't know anything about that. Really, I mean, since it's become a full-time job, 5 years ago, I had 5 part-time jobs at one point in the last, you know, at once. And he was a bartender for a long time. You were hustling with, you know, galleries and all that stuff. And then one by one, they fell off, thankfully. But since, like, the weird paradox is, since this is my job now, I don't paint for the hell of it, which I miss, you know, like, I talk about it a lot, and I don't do it. Every now and again, I'll start one in the studio and then leave it half finished and go to work, you know, but, you know, it's funny you say that, because I actually just got a text today from a very desirable building in a very desirable area, the owner that we hit up months ago, hoping to put a mural that was paid for by another company. They just needed a wall. Anyway, they now that we've started the mural elsewhere, the owner finally texted me today and said, "Hey, you can have the wall if you want it. We're not paying for it." And I'm like, all right, cool. So we have to. You still have to do it for the love. We haven't in a long time, but
If it's for like an elementary school or something, you know, there's a little bit more of a reward there.
do you sometimes also connect the dots where you have somebody that would pay for a wall, and then, like in this case, you have now a wall available to you, where you can
It's
kind of
usually
put
not the
parts
case.
together?
no. Usually the wall is available, and we have to go figure out the money, you know, or
Yeah.
if the client isn't willing to pay for it. Like, building owners don't like to pay for art, in our experience. You know, like developers and stuff, if they have, you know, guys that are shelling out of their own pocket. If it's a big company or
Yeah.
something, they'll work it into a budget or something. But people that own buildings, in our experience, are like, Yeah, you can have both, of course I want smart, you know, like,
Yeah. I feel public art has in Charlotte especially, like, just increased like recognition though. Like if I look at, for example, like going up Stonewall Station,
Mhm.
where that big art piece is going
Mhm.
up. Like I
Super
feel
cool.
like people are more and more inclined to have art incorporated, like you said, even in
Right.
the planning process already into you know, their project. So what do you think is the status quo of public art in Charlotte right now? And where do you see it like 10 years from now?
status quo. Status quo, I mean, like, what is the state that it's in right
Yeah.
now, or? What is it, pupa, larva? It doesn't have wings yet, but it's out of the little cocoon. We're getting there, you know, I mean, Will Puckett, 12 years ago or something, he was, in my opinion, he's the
First
guy.
mural I ever saw.
Yeah, Will Puckett up in Noda, I mean, he covered Noda, you know, back in the day.
Matheson Bridge?
But
Yeah.
even before that, the side of Jack Beagles.
Yeah, Matheson Bridge, Sad Jack Beagles, I mean, Will Puckett, like, he moved to Scotland recently, and he was always a low-key guy, but he was the one, when I moved down here in 2007, that I first noticed.
I remember the first time he called me by my name, I like started fanboying, so.
And then we went to Art Basel in 2014 and did 3 walls, and when we got back, it was like, oh, there's a lot of blank real estate here.
Yeah.
And thankfully, a friend of ours was managing a bar uptown between Tryon and College on 5th Street. Used to be Phil's. Now it's called The Local, and we did a big, obnoxious, multicolored, exploding crown. But yeah, the status quo, I mean, it's getting there, it's cool. Like, for a while, the pool's not really that deep, really. It's still not that deep. There's not a ton of people that do what we do, thankfully, but there are.
I feel like it's improving. There's a lot of people that are doing it full time now.
I think where,
Or it's increasing.
yeah, I think where it needs to go, where I'd like to see it go, like talking about that thing on Stonewall, that cool multicolored like sculptural thing. Somebody put it on their Instagram, one of the big like Eat Play Charlotte or whatever big 70,000 follower Instagram accounts put that up there, and all these people grabbed their torches and pitchforks and were like, hire local artists instead of other. I'm like, no man, like
Good to have variety.
don't be that guy, you know, like.
Yeah.
I want other artists to come here. I want international artists to come here. I don't want to just have the same 6 cool kids in high school hang
Like
out.
Art
you
Basel.
know?
I mean,
Right.
that's-
Right.
that's
That's
the
where we
example.
need to go, I think, and we're trying to facilitate that. Where, you know, we're going to be bringing some people in from Europe soon, early next year
Oh, cool.
to paint. Yeah.
Yes.
And yeah, it's gonna be cool. But that's where I'd like to see it go, and then onward and upward, I guess.
And slowly but surely, I think, you know, for us, I'm curious if it's the same for you, Sharon. Every time we meet with a client,